You're welcome back. Now, over the weekend, the Information Minister announced that the government has released the report and the accompanying white paper from the Ayawaso West Wuogon Commission's work. And of course, it had been sent for gazetting and printing by Associated Press. However, here at JoyNews, we have received the report, and we want to talk about it. So let's dig in. First of all, let's go straight into Chapter 3, where a number of things were said. First of all, regarding electoral security, the report says the maintenance of a safe and secure environment for the conduct of elections is vital for Ghana's democratic governance. Regrettably, however, past elections have often been marred by incidents of violence and states of insecurity, resulting in injuries and, in some cases, loss of lives. It is therefore utterly important that the management of elections are promised on the assurance of security and optimal guarantees of safety on electoral grounds for the public to exercise their franchise without any fear. The Commission finds that by-elections appear to focus the attentions and competition between the parties on one constituency, thereby increasing the potential for violence. This fact should not be lost on the EC and the country at large, and so no effort must be spared in making appropriate security management for the event. It goes on to say the Commission finds that while there was some semblance of security provided within the Ayawaso West Wuogon constituency on the said day of the elections, the otherwise reasonable arrangement was abruptly disrupted by the SWAT team who, though were not part of the arrangement, arrived on the scene unannounced. In a related conclusion, the Commission finds that there was not sufficient prior coordination, usually characteristic of such elections, between the Electoral Commission and the security services, notably the police service, on the issue of the security needs of the EC for a successful conduct of elections within the constituency. Now, this finding is especially troubling given the importance of coordination in ensuring a proper mapping of the security needs of the elections and strategic hotspots in light of past experiences. And it goes on. In this particular case, because the candidate of the NDC lives in quite close proximity to the polling station, planning adequate security guarantees cannot be overemphasized. Adequate prior coordination has the further advantage of allowing the EC as the primary stakeholder in the electoral exercise to play a lead role in the management of security deployments for the day in order to ensure that the execution of any security agenda balances the need for security with the avoidance of a state of fear and panic created in the voting public, often caused by the massive show of force. It goes on. The Commission further finds that the SWAT team, which was deployed to the electoral grounds of the Labaoleshi School polling station grounds in complete disregard of the officially laid down electoral security arrangement, were officers of the National Security Establishment. Let's read two more of these findings. 1.7. In this regard, the Commission finds that these persons were deployed and commanded by a police officer named DSP Samuel Azugu under the authority of the Director of Operations of the National Security Secretariat and with the ultimate responsibility of the Minister of State for National Security. I'll read one more finding. The Commission further finds that these men, in quotes here, were deployed to follow up on intelligence to the effect that certain arms and ammunition stored in a warehouse within the constituency and to intercept and retrieve same. From the generality of the evidence given before the Commission, however, it is clear that the said intelligence gathered was neither shared with the police, who were in charge of security for the election, nor was the said intelligence information tested in accordance with any known or standardized rating or ranking protocols to determine its reliability. This is further compounded by the copious evidence before the Commission to the effect that the team aborted the mission and made no efforts to retrieve the said arms. I think we'll leave it there. Those are some of the findings of the Commission. What we haven't had the chance to look at are the recommendations of the Commission, which are equally important, but we did hear some of those recommendations discussed on Joy FM last night, particularly the recommendations to have DSP Azugu removed from his current position as commander of the SWAT team and reassigned somewhere. Also, the recommendation for the individual identified as having assaulted Sam George in the video to also be prosecuted. These are the recommendations, some of the recommendations of the commission. But we are yet to see the white paper.
Yeah, but we do have
aspects.
Yes,
of the
we
white
do have
paper.
snippets of the white paper already.
Okay, so
And,
these are what has been. This is what is out there, at least, not the entire white paper. What we have is aspects of it. You can take us through with what we have. I think we have. Let's start from page 3.
Yeah.
Or 5.
Which page should we start from? Page 5.
Page 5. Yeah.
All right. It's okay. So the commission submitted its report to the president on the 14th of March. Government has studied the report thoroughly and has issued this white paper to embody its response to the report as provided for in Clause 3 of Article 280 of the Constitution. And then it begins. It says, the fundamental response of government to the findings of the report is that the report failed to address the first and most critical of the terms of reference of the Commission, which was, and I quote, to make a full, faithful, and impartial inquiry into the circumstances of and establish the facts leading to the events and associated violence that occurred during the Ayawaso West Wogon by-election on the 31st day of January 2019. The failure to do so disables government from accepting in whole the findings of the Commission. Some of the findings are accepted by government, whereas others are rejected. Reasons for the government's position have been assigned in this white paper where necessary. All right, so I think we need to know why the government feels that the Commission did not fulfill the most critical of the terms of reference. So let's see if we can highlight the government's reason for this. Here we go. The government takes note of the recommendation regarding the Command and Control Center in paragraph 8.1.2 on page 56 of the report and repeats that a Command and Control Center exists for coordinating the operations of various security agencies. Okay. The government rejects the recommendation in paragraph 8.1.3 on page 56 of the report on the basis of factual inaccuracy. The government states that the said minister is a minister of state at the office of the president who has been directed to work at the Ministry of National Security and assist the Minister for National Security in the performance of his duties.
So the issue for us is the fact that we don't have the specific recommendation in terms of the details of that. You get that?
Okay. So
relate it to the response in the white paper.
Right. Okay. I think I know. The last one I read is in relation to the recommendation of the Commission that the role of the Minister of State for National Security, currently Brian Achampong, should be clarified so that it is understood how his role interacts with the role of the Minister for National Security, Kandapa, and who reports to whom and so forth, and what his duties specifically are. Government says they reject this recommendation because to them his role is clear.
There's also an aspect of the general architecture of state security where government also rejects some of the recommendations. It would be good if our producers would take us to the recommendation, general architecture, and the general architecture of state security. We can do some quick analysis on this aspect. Come to the white paper and check the disagreements that government has with this. But we first have to go to the recommendations in terms of the Ayawaso West Wogon Commission findings and go to
what page is that
on? Page 13 from what we have. I can begin to read aspects of it. The evidence given before the Commission presents a confused and unsettling picture relative to the structure and systems put in place for the provision of a state of national security for Ghana. In the main, the top officers whose schedules border on national security and who testified before the Commission appeared at best unsure of the boundaries of their work and authority and the coordinating roles of their institutions relative to other allied agencies, not to speak of reforms in an evolving delicate establishment. From the totality of the evidence given, the Commission finds that the confusion may partly stem from the lack of clear demarcations of authority and responsibility, as well as delineation of mandate subsistent between the Ministry of National Security and the Ministry of Interior. In the sensitive aspect of national life, confusion and overlapping can only be detrimental to the interests of the state.
Okay.
But, Kojo, you want to check the response in the white paper.
That's right.
Take us back there.
Let's have a quick look at that white paper and the response to this specific recommendation. Let's see. It would be... the government rejects the recommendation in paragraph 8.1.3 on page 56. So no, that can't be it. It should be referring to page 13. So let's go down and see what other rejection we can find.
So this will be 2.1 on the general architecture of state security.
Okay, so let's go down or up, because it's a rejection of 2.1, not 8.1. Can we go up, please?
Let's see. Maybe I can also retrieve that bit and start going through it. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, it's important for us to understand the reason why the government feels that this recommendation by the commission, that there must be clarity.
Okay, so this is 6.5 in the white paper, 6.5, okay. General recommendations.
6.5 in
the
white paper. So we need to go down 6.5. 6.5, I think we're going up. We need to go down.
Okay, so it's that. And kindly look for it because it's there. The government accepts in part the general recommendations of the commission captured in the commission's report at paragraph 10 on page 60. The government makes the following comments on the general recommendation by the commission. The government rejects the commission's recommendations of the report on the structure of reporting, roles and responsibilities within the national security setup. The government reiterates that the Constitution and the Security and Intelligence Agencies Act 1996, Act 526, spell out clearly the responsibilities and roles of the various offices within the national security setup. So if you like, that observation of overlapping of duties, not clear, government is rejecting that. The government rejects the Commission's recommendation of the reports and states that recruitment into the Ghana Police Service. Okay, so this is another aspect that we haven't quite touched on yet. Okay. I mean, this is, as it is coming now, we'll have to take our time and serialize it so we can get a clear understanding. Because on many aspects, as we even watched the Commission's hearing with various people called before it and testifying, there's a bit about the white paper where governments accept the recommendations, the Commission's recommendation of the reports insofar it relates to vigilantism and hooliganism. As stated above, the government is unable to accept the use of the word militia by the Commission. The government states further that this recommendation has been overtaken by events in the light of the passage of the Vigilantism and Related Offences Act 2019, Act 999, initiated by the President of the Republic to disband and prohibit vigilante groups and their activities.
That is very important. So you see, the reason why they are rejected, according to that, and we have to come back and talk about the structure thing that they've rejected, but on this issue, the reason why government says they are rejecting the use of the word militia is because they have already gone and passed a law in which they use the word vigilantism. So that's what they mean when they say we've been overtaken by events. So can anybody explain to us why government did not heed the calls of so many from civil society, from members of parliament, who all said that? Why don't you wait for the report to receive the report before you propose a bill? Why don't you wait until you have gone through the report? Because for a long time the president said he hasn't read the report. So why don't you wait and read the report, see what it recommends, before you then put detail into a bill? Why must the bill be independent of the work of the commission? Are you not planning to consider the work of the commission? And now here we see it. They went ahead.
Considering they rejected quite a number of the recommendations, so they would not have factored it into the bill.
But they could not have said that the reason why we are rejecting it is because we've been overtaken by events. They would have had to explain why the word militia should not be accepted. Instead, they are telling us that, we've already passed the bill. So we can't accept the use of the word militia.
I think that so far as the Constitution gives the right to government through the white paper to accept or reject whatever the content of the report from any commission of inquiry is. We can only perhaps make the opinion known and make some of these comments, etc.
That's what analysis is about.
Yeah.
So let us.
But government chooses, in my opinion, to say that militia could not be related to any group of bandits, whether
they haven't said that.
Yeah, whether put together by individuals or political parties, etc., to be referred to as militia.
All they've said is you've been overtaken by events.
Yeah, but they would want to relate it to vigilantism.
You know what they would want to do?
There is a certain aspect.
They said they don't agree to the word militia
because
vigilantes will be the word they would rather want to.
Because they have put that in the law, in the bill.
Yeah, definitely, for good reason.
Yes, it's a law.
For good reason.
Yeah, it's a law.
No, but what reason?
So there's a.
But that's what the government has stated.
There's a certain aspect which is command and control. There's an aspect which is command and control, because most of us couldn't believe it when the security officials appeared before the commission and responded the manner in which they did. So here's the commission's say on that. So on the issue of command and control, the failure was even more glaring and pronounced. The commission finds that the evidence shows a complete breakdown of command responsibility and anarchy on the electoral grounds at La Baoleshi School polling station, and the commanding officer in charge of the SWAT team could not show what interventions he made to ensure that the operation was conducted in as best a professional manner as was possible to ensure civilian safety. The director of operations at the National Security was at the operations headquarters, but did not appear to have retained control, leaving matters in the hands of the tactical commander, who could not defend his actions taken. The failure of command responsibility was also evident in the lack of coordination between the sector minister and the Minister of State in charge of national security. The contradictory evidence presented before the commission by the ministers involved exemplifies the dissonance in the actions of the ministers and sectors involved. It goes on to say that the confusion in command responsibility and the lack of discretion exercised by scheduled officers on the ground on the occasion exacerbated an already degenerative situation and ultimately led to the event that were witnessed at the Laobaoleshi School polling station. And it goes on and on and on and on this particular, but these are like very key findings, and I am not surprised that they arrived at this conclusion.
But are you surprised that the government has rejected so many of their recommendations and stated from the onset that the reason why they cannot accept the findings in full is because the commission failed to fulfill its terms of reference? Now,
you know, it would bring back, you know, there were lots of people who couldn't understand that we're even setting up a commission of inquiry. They said it was useless, because if you look at the track record of the works that commissions of inquiries have done and what we've done, exactly. Yeah. So, but this is this is a bit different, because it's not like we've accepted the reports, you know, the whole report. But this is, we are attacking it, and we are rejecting it. We're rejecting aspect of it, and you're going ahead to tell you why they are rejecting it. So this is a bit different, but I am not surprised. We knew that we won't go anywhere with the commission of inquiry anyway.
So this is what I want us to establish before we even continue with our analysis. Roland said it. This government has the legal right to do what they are doing. They have the legal right to accept whichever aspect of it that they want, to reject whichever aspect of it that they want. They can reject the whole thing if they want. They have the legal right to do so. Let us take that as a given and not refer to that again, because otherwise then there's no point of this analysis. But we still have to do analysis because this government has offered reasons for their acceptance and rejection of some of these things. So there is something to discuss. So if we go back to the fact that they have the legal right, then what's the point? We understand that. Now let's analyze the reasons they have given, and particularly the reasons they did not give. So they are saying that this commission did not fulfill the terms of reference.
Some.
But did they? Yes, they did not. No, they said that they did not fulfill the most important term of reference. Have they explained the ways in which the commission failed to fulfill this term of reference?
I don't think so. Well, but the thing is that we don't have the entire white paper, right? But I doubt that it would explain in detail.
It would be interesting to see if it does.
I agree with you.
The other thing is, you know, this thing we were discussing earlier about the fact that we have been overtaken by events. You know, what I was trying to say was that in that paragraph, and Mama B can read it again, the only reason they are giving for rejecting the word militia is that we have been overtaken by events. In essence, we have already passed a law that says vigilante. So we can't now go back and accept the word
refer to them
militia. And I accept that. I agree. I mean, the thing is already a law, unless you want to go back and amend it, which is possible. If they wanted to, they could go back and amend it. But they are saying we have already passed the law. Fair enough. So my question is this. Why did we pass the law before issuing a white paper or whatever we wanted to do?
Why not? It was an emergency. The media and everybody else, civil society, was on the neck of government.
I have a
that continuously. We've had sit-ins.
Are you stating a fact? Did somebody?
I have a theory actually
on government to pass a law at that time.
There was excessive public opinion and pressure on government, not to pass a law, but to take action.
Was there
the
no
government,
pressure on government
in its position, decided that it was going ahead to promulgate an act? And they went through, formulated a bill, they sent it to Parliament, and subsequently Parliament passed the act, and then the President assented. I think that's within the remit of the executive to do
saying that it's within the remit. We know
it's true.
It's within the remit. We are
whatever has been done, just like has been done
things.
by way of precedent.
If you keep saying that it's within their
right, that's why you're arguing this way.
Them of illegality.
Yeah, but that's your opinion.
No, it isn't.
And I have not said that
they have done anything illegal. I have not said that.
I haven't
so
said
that
they've
is not
done
my
anything
opinion.
illegal.
So what I've been
your answer to me is that they have the right to do it.
So what I've been trying to find, what I've been trying to find, okay, what I've been trying to find, thank God I have it, party associated militia vigilantes, and this is from the original Commission of Inquiry reports. This is the aspect. It says the commission finds that the reality of militia groups, either formed by the political parties or otherwise affiliated to them, is beyond reasonable doubts. Evidence led before the commission clearly showed that these groups are either actively supported and or funded by the parties themselves or by prominent individuals within the parties. At a minimum, their existence is condoned by the two leading political parties of the NDC and NPP, for whom they performed vigilante services from time to time. Like all militias, these groups retain minimum military or quasi-military characteristics, prefer men of well-built physique and physical fitness, follow a regimen of training, and observe leadership and command structures. They bear names of known terrorist organizations or ferocious creatures, or the name of the founder, etc. In some cases, some of these groups bear weapons of various kinds, such as whips, tasers, or batons, and have even been known to use firearms. There have been many reports over the years of assault and other forms of mayhem. They have visited upon members of the general public, including at the premises of courts, or to free colleagues on trial for breaches of the peace. So it's very extensive on this, and that's the reaction in the white paper, at least the brief one that we've seen. We don't have the privilege of the entirety of the white paper.
And we've had the member of parliament, who is at the center of all this, Sam George, yesterday say on Top Story that he thought there was a second gentleman beyond the recommended prosecution of Mohammed by the commission's reports, who also should have been maybe also included as well. And the white paper is saying the government does not accept that the commission's recommendation, this is on page 22, that Mohammed Suleimana, he's a gentleman who slapped the member of parliament, must be prosecuted for the offense of assault, to which the slapping of the honorable member of parliament, Mr. Samuel Nate George, on the basis of that commission. And this is visible. Everybody could see that.
Did they give a reason for rejecting?
Guys, on the basis that the commission at paragraphs, etc.
There will be more of this on News Desk later this morning. Well, we have to wrap up. We have to bring you some conversations on the Habitat Fair. Stay with us.